Now, everybody should know that I love the Joe Budden podcast. Everybody should know, right? We've covered a little bit of it on the podcast. We definitely covered it on the live show. Shameless plug, live show every Tuesday, 8 p.m. on YouTube. Yummy? But there's something that transpired that not on a gossip tip, but more on a business tip that I really wanted to go over, which was Joe Budden has two co-hosts. Well, technically like three, right? Rory and Mal and Parks. And these past couple of episodes that has been in the blogs and everything is that Rory and Mal are absent from the podcast. No longer do you hear their voice. And we're not very sure when they come back on. Now, personally, I hope they come back on very soon. I do not want the podcast to end. And this is probably a shameless plug for you to go check Joe Budden. But I've been a fan of Joe Budden for a very, very long time and of the podcast. I think they've been running for like over 5 years or something like that. Right?
Wow.
Now, like I said, it's not more of a gossipy thing or anything like that. It's more of how do you handle business and friendship? And I thought it was cool to bring it here because me and Moose are friends. And so now this is almost like a real life lesson on okay, we have a podcast, we're friends. Hello. If 7 years down the line, if this doesn't align, what's happening, right? And for me, I find this timing so crazy because the Joe Budden podcast has been on the up for quite a while now, right? Everything from having their own Spotify deal to then getting out of Spotify and kind of being a free agent to then creating this Joe Budden network and acquiring like 2 shows. Like they've been really, really moving. And then all of a sudden, the thing that has been like the foundation, which is the podcast, is now up in the air. I'm like, yo, what is the disconnect, right? What is the disconnect? So I found the clip that I really want to talk about. So this is Rory, one of the co-hosts of the Joe Budden podcast. And he did this episode prior to not being on these latest episodes. So don't think that he wasn't on and then he went into the interview. This was done before, but listen to this.
If you having some problems with your friends in business, you can end the business and keep the friendship, or you can continue with it and end both. Because the business is going to end because y'all are going to fight, and then you're not going to be friends anymore. Podcasting is not my passion.
Okay.
I hate like the network that y'all are doing. I love. That's great. That's what y'all want to do. I don't. I have no passion in starting a bunch of podcasts. It's not part of my life. This isn't your passion.
So how do
I can't expect effort from you when it's not your passion.
So,
wow.
Okay. So this is my thing, right? And I'll start off with this. Why do you start a business with your friends? Like, why? And I think anybody who answers that is going to be like have different answers, right? But when I look and hear that clip, my major concern, and even I was thinking about it with Moose, was like, yo, does he want to do podcasting? Like, does he think it's cool for right now, but it's not really his passion? So if we was to build this out, this is not really his thing. Like, this gets you thinking from like, okay, is it a passion thing or do we just match in values? So that's why we rock with each other so great. So whatever we do, like, we're going to do it. Like, prime example, and this being a little transparent, he's probably going to kick me, but I don't care because we're virtual.
He said,
But
can't kick me eventually. That's good.
but the whole real estate thing, right? We've been talking about, well, he and another individual been talking about real estate for the longest, and I'm like, I'm gonna do it because you are going to do it. Like, that's not my thing. I'm not with it. It doesn't excite me. I understand that is the typical way of growing to millions and possible billions, but I don't feel like I want to go that way. But you are, and I love you. And so let's do this. Let's figure this out, right? But if it was to expand into something crazy, like if he's like, yo, we're going to be developers. You see what Terica does? We're going to do all this. We're going to have streets and everything. And I'm going to be like, where's the tech side? Is there any kind of tech situations? If not, I don't know, right? So my question is, when starting a business or event or anything with your friends, like, what is more important? Is it the passion or is it the values? And if you go off of the values, does that have a deadline?
That is, yeah, you have no idea how powerful of a question that is for anyone. That's such a dope question. And it's so real though. Do you pick your partners based on mutual passions, or do you pick your partners based on complementing values? Meaning, we believe in the same thing, we see life the same way, we value the same things, and maybe we bring value to each other that, the other person doesn't have. So it's like, okay, cool. We complement each other's, styles. That's cool. Wow. Yeah.
Ideally,
honestly,
we would want both. Ideally.
Of course. For sure.
Perfect scenario, which no one ever really has, right? Perfect scenario. But because then also what came into my head is, not only do you have to worry about like passion and values, you also have to worry about work ethic as well. But that's a whole different, because
that's a different thing.
That's a different thing at that point. But just between those two, based off the clip, like, what's to you, what's more important?
I believe values. I'm going to go with values. I think values are still more important, because when two individuals can, number one, be mindful and respect each other's values, meaning the things that, are important to them, for the most part, your relationship is going to be rock solid. Now, if the values are there, you're likely to compromise on passion, just like you kind of did. It's like, yo, I'm not necessarily feeling the real estate game, but because we do share value in multiple other businesses or multiple other areas, then cool, I'll compromise, being that this seems to be one of your passions. Similar to me on my end, even like with the NFT space, it still seemed like, forget, even going further back, Clubhouse. Right? For me, it was like, I don't know. But then I'm like, but hold up, Nicky really is passionate and adamant about this. I need to, even if it's from a supportive standpoint, let me just explore and see what it's about. So I think when you value each other and what you bring to the table, it's easy to compromise on the passion. Meaning like, okay, I'm gonna go and step into your world and see what that's about. And similarly, at some point you'll step into mine and we'll kind of do things together. But if it's never going to be that way, and this is the situation where, with the JBN and their podcast, where it makes you wonder, like, okay, is Joe equally as excited about maybe some of the things that the fellows are pursuing away from what is happening under his umbrella?
Right.
Or does he only want all of their time, effort, and commitment being tied to, what seems to be his baby? So I can see some issues with that. But I will say, from a partnership standpoint, and man, is this a good question. Again, I got to give you credit for, bringing it up or coming up with it. But yeah, if the values are aligned, I feel that, it can be easy to compromise on passions, especially if you're stepping into each other's worlds. But now, I don't know if you would say the same thing, because Yeah, I don't know. I'm actually curious to know. What would you say? What would be more important to you?
So it's such a struggle because for me, I'm like, I don't, when it comes to something new, I don't want to be put in a scenario of already thinking, when can this end? See what I'm saying? And so I know that from something that I may be passionate about, that if that person doesn't feel as passionate about it, I have to instantly think of what is the end, like where's this end? Like when does it, so I can continue to make this mutual, because I may be passionate and this person may be supportive because of the values. So I have to keep it somewhat mutual and be like, we're only doing this for this long. Here are the results we could possibly get by doing it this long. And if we go longer, this is like, I feel like I have to be at that point with it.
So let me ask you this, and this is probably playing a little devil's advocate. Do partners have to be in business together in every business? You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, they started the podcast together. They did the network. Okay, great. So they're partners in that business.
Right.
Is it cool, let's say, Joe was like, okay, bet, I'm going to go in NFT. And then the other two are like, I'm not going to go in NFT. I'm going to go in whatever, TFN. And it's like,
right.
Is it cool that happens, or what's the boundaries on that?
So I think if there's still an understanding that everything comes to the pot, like you don't have to do everything with me, but with you, I feel comfortable that you are at least knowing certain things. Like there's certain things that I'll go to you and be like, okay, what's your thoughts? Boom. And then I'll run with it. And then I'll come back to you. Okay, this is what happened. And it's not necessarily I need you to do any kind of legwork.
Right.
But at the same time, I don't feel, this is going to sound all mushy. Oh my God. I was like, I don't feel comfortable doing much without you. This sounds really mushy. Okay, hold on.
Let's go. We got Nick showing emotion on a podcast. Let's go. Wow.
Anyways, I'm going to try to go back to my thug life. So
I'm going to go back to the thug life. Hey, thugs cry too. I love it.
Yo.
I love it.
So at least for me, like if it's something that you're like, nah, don't want to, I don't want to do it. Even though for me, I said that about real estate. I was like, no, I don't want to, go somewhere. And now it's like pressure. I'm like, all right, fine. All right.
Yeah.
But do this take this. I don't really want to do much, but I fully support it in this kind of way, right? You can have all of that. Just leave me out of the rest, right?
Right.
And even with this podcast, it's like the tech side, like I don't put you involved with that. You're like, hey, could I help? And you're like, but at the same time, please don't ask me this part.
Right.
But at the same time, this makes me look at things as far as when, as friends in business, how often do you do a temp check? Like, how often do you sit down and be like, okay, here was a milestone. Like for them, they got out of Spotify. Okay, boom, is everybody still on the same page? Cool. We're going to do a network. Is everybody still on the same page? Cool. Boom. There's other things. And, or is there enough time away from each other? Because, now we're spending a whole lot of time. And where's the balance? Like, how often do you do a temp check when working with friends?
Yeah. I mean, I do think from a communication standpoint, there's got to be certain code words that you use when you're about to
Pineapples?
It could be pineapples. Go with pineapples. We'll take some pineapples if it is. That's what it is. But there's got to be a code word that lets you know, like, okay, we're friends right now. Okay, no, I'm about to switch into the business world. Hey, pineapple. So that way, there's at least a mental switch for someone to know, okay, this is not the friend jokey stuff. This is like legitimate business stuff. So that emotions aren't hurt. And I think that's one of the things that people may not notice. But if we're just mixing and, everything together, there are times where a joke, whatever it is, or like it just goes too far, and then it's taken personal, and then the next thing on the agenda might be discussing, I don't know, let's say a negotiation or a business deal. Then you're taking that and carrying it into this conversation, and there's some baggage there. So, and that's one of the rare incidents with friends where the two mix, and that's why I think people say often don't do business with friends and family. It's for those reasons, because the personal is often mixing it with the business side. But yeah, I definitely think there's got to be some like lines around communication. But lastly, I think twice a year, minimum of twice a year, is like, yo, let's catch up. Let's do something, nothing tied to an agenda. And I think we do that.
Yep.
I don't want to say twice a year, but it's cool that we have conversation time to time. It's just like, didn't want nothing, just checking in. And it's like no agenda, just dialogue. And it helps to, air out and see where things are at.
What I do love what he said, it was like, friendship still comes first. Like, regardless of anything, like the friendship is going to be here. So I'd rather have the business stop than anything. Like, I could lose the business. We can make 19 more of those. Like, if you make one, you can make another one. Right.
It's true.
And so I do like that he said, we'll end the business to keep the friendship, because if you don't, then you have the chance of messing up with both. Because I do believe, and I don't know if I've dealt with it, but I feel like there were certain times I felt it, not with you. But like that as we go along with certain things and there wasn't necessarily a temp check, the resentment came in. Like, I started to find every reason. This is when I know I'm fed up. I find every small reason to like not like where I'm at that moment. And then
Red
I'm
flag,
like,
yeah.
And it's like, okay, hold on. Like, we get mad that the person didn't call when they said they were going to call back. We get mad, like the littlest things. And I'm like, oh, I'm starting to resent, and it's starting to build up. So something has to change, or I'm just overall going to think you're an ugly human being, and I may stay a little bit, but you're still overall ugly human being, and our friendship and our closeness can never be the same. First off, we hope that clearly you guys get back together and all that great stuff in the podcast still keeps going. This, like I said, this was not a gossiping thing. This is just literally like our life. Like, this is a conversation that needed, like, other people have or are even thinking about starting a business or a venture, something like that with their friends. And it's like, what's important, or what's a realistic understanding when going into business with your friends? I think that's what it was.
100%.
Hey.
100%.